Oh my god, hey! Welcome back to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you're seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. Today I'm at one of my favourite theatres in the world, the lovely Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, where I'm very excited to finally be seeing the new revival of Legally Blonde. I'm going to go see the show and tell you what I think. So, I just got back from seeing Legally Blonde at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre and I have a lot of thoughts. But also, I want to preface all of that by saying I had a really great time. Like, there are definitely things I want to talk about in this production and there are things I thought were great and fantastic and there are things that didn't work and that left me dizzyingly confused. But also I just had a great time. And a lot of that is just the material of Legally Blonde and missing hearing it and seeing it so much. But this is also an objectively fun production. So I had a great time. Here are all of my thoughts. This is a 4-star show for me. This really divided a lot of people. It's had 3s, it's had 4s, it's had 5s. And if it weren't for the strength of the source material, it would be a 3-star production based on what they have done with it. What carries it through to a 4-star is how good the material is. I've said this before, but Legally Blonde is a really great show that got not nearly enough credit when it first premiered on Broadway in 2007. If you think about the kind of new musicals we were seeing, the appetite on Broadway was for another Rent, which had just closed, was for Spring Awakening, was for Next to Normal. Legally Blonde redefined the contemporary musical theatre genre and is the reason why we have Heathers and Mean Girls and Beetlejuice. It made this entire subgenre of whimsical, light-hearted, adolescent, relatable, based on a film, bubblegum pop, fun, campy shows possible. And the MTV Pro Shot recording did an awful lot for the professional filming of musicals just as a concept. So you can only go so wrong with Legally Blonde because it is just so much fun, it's so camp, it's infectiously joyful, it has a great message. UK audiences have missed this material because it's been gone for a few years unless you've gone to see one of the drama school productions that have happened. That being said, this is a bold revival, which in itself is a really interesting concept because since we've had all these contemporary new musicals, we haven't ever seen any of them, to my knowledge, be revived in a non-traditional way, where you have something that's based on a film. Everything has kind of been an attempt to put the film on stage in a naturalistic sense. This is the first time we've seen a contemporary show reinvented. And I will talk about all of these areas more specifically, but Lucy Moss's direction takes some big swings for me and has other areas where it just profoundly misses. A lot of the creative aspects for me have some great wins and also some losses. The performances across the board I'm able to enjoy, but there are parts of the characterizations that I don't think are completely realized. What really made me struggle to get on board with this show is the extent of the changes made to the script and lyrics, some of which I understand, some of which I still really don't. There are so many that has to be its own separate video. So down the line, stay tuned to my channel, make sure you're subscribed. If not, why not? This is the stagey place to be. Make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to be posting another video on my channel listing all of the changes in this Legally Blonde revival, and believe me, there are a lot. I was frantically making notes of them on my phone after the show so that I can tell you in thorough detail what is different about this version of the show. I'm talking new lyrics, different character names, completely different characters. There's a lot to get into. But that's for next time. For now, I will say I was able to enjoy this show, but it also had its creative shortcomings. And ultimately, I just never got why it was being staged at Regent's Park. You know, this is not their main summer musical. This is what they're doing at the beginning of their season. Normally we would see a play here. They are definitely taking a risk. They are throwing this production at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And jury's out. It got some rave reviews, so maybe it's stuck. It's not selling as well as I would like for it to, as I'm sure they would like for it to. I think they're trying to explore a new market, a new audience, and trying to attract a younger crowd of theatregoer to Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. So Lucy Moss directed this, and she definitely had a strong artistic vision for this show. Allegedly, she did not know of this show beforehand, which I find baffling, because how do you not know Legally Blonde the musical? If you haven't watched it already, go watch it right now. And her approach to the casting, I absolutely love. What we're seeing is a far more racially diverse, a far more body positive, a far more trans and non-binary inclusive version of this cast, which does literally nothing to impede or affect the plot of the show. The whole thing carries on as usual. It is so secondary to any of the plot that's happening that it doesn't really matter at all. There are a couple of moments where I think the show could actually be stronger for acknowledging this casting. Elle and Emmett are both people of colour in this production. They have an entire conversation about law school and having to work harder to be taken seriously, and I think that takes on a new level of resonance. I would love to have seen that explored a little bit more, because there were a lot of script changes, so I feel like just a couple of lines would have really made that a lot more meaningful. One of the most talked about decisions here is the choice to have the dogs in this production be played by people in dog costumes, one of which kind of looks like an in-person version of the Cats movie but with a pink harness on, which in hindsight is just a dog harness. It's not fetish wear, but you put that on a person and the lines get blurred very quickly. The other dog comes in this orange cat suit, but for dogs, I guess, and is a poodle, and I was a little disappointed by that, just because in the original film and stage show, the second dog is a bulldog to the first chihuahua, so I kind of wanted the bulldog to come in and be a leather daddy. I just did. I'm sorry. Maybe it's weird that that's what I was expecting. Was slightly disappointed. Just generally, colour blocking is a big thing in this revival. Like, the whole set is pink, except for a very, very garish curtain, which I was able to tune out, but every time you see it and remember that it's there, you notice that it's very ugly. They've basically printed Courtney Bowman's blonde braids onto a curtain that wraps around multiple levels of the set, and it's not necessary. The set reminds me of this pink plastic Britney Spears stage I had when I was a child. There was a little Britney Spears doll. I could stand on it and press different buttons to make it sing Britney songs. 10 years later, I had to come out to my mother. Let that sink in. But it gives the staging various different options for what it could do. There's different levels, there's stairs. Sometimes they get a little bit in the way, but generally they make the best of this space. So the costuming is a very deliberate choice here. Elle and all of her friends and all of the Delta News are in pink, and only pink. When we get to Harvard, everyone is in muted browns and dark greens, and it's very modern, it's very Zara, it's very Shine. When Brooke Wyndham comes on with her dancers, she's in like a turquoisey teal, and they're all in turquoisey teal. Paulette is in orange, all of her staff are in orange, her dog is orange. Like, everything has to be cohesive in a colour blocking way that is telling a story. I just don't know if I understand what the story is, or that it has to be that dumbed down. Like, we can understand different groups of characters and their relationships to each other without it being made that obvious. But I get that it's a stylistic choice. Another thing I struggled with is the music. Now, I love the score of Legally Blonde, and I liked the size of the band. I generally liked most of the vocals. A lot of people sounded like they were struggling in the lower register specifically. And I don't know either if they just had to contend with the openness of performing outdoors rather than in a more nurturing space for the sound, like in a closed auditorium, or if it was the fact I was seeing it after press night and they had been to a party after their previous performance. Equally possible options. But there were definitely some songs that I wished were faster. Specifically, it hit me when Elle is doing her little verse of Chip on My Shoulder and she goes, "I've been smiling and sweet and thoroughly beat and blowing my chance." I'm like willing her to speed up and actually get to a little bit of an accelerando here because it was killing me. And I had little nitpicky musical direction notes, like in the ensemble lines at the end of Blood in the Water. It's such a jazzy little line that they get, like blood in the water, blood in the, but it was just sung so like blood in the water, blood in, like it wants a little bit of like a blood in, and it just wants a little pop on that first bit. I don't know if I'm making any sense whatsoever, but I have specific needs when I go and see Legally Blonde. What I'm hearing here is that I'm a nightmare. So Courtney Bowman is a really lovely Elle. And when I say you do not think at all about her body type or her race when she's playing this role, I actually mean it. It's her soul and her energy that make her completely perfect for this, and her incredible voice, my gosh, and her comedy skills. Now, she gave so much sass and comedy, I lost a little bit of the vulnerability in the first act, and I think if you don't really sell that when she's at her lowest, it's harder to root for her rise and her progression throughout the show. It just loses a little bit of its heart. She also had to contend with some really questionable incredible wig and costuming choices. So you give her a lot of props for that. I do love that she puts in the little option up towards the end of So Much Better and goes, I am so much better. I know exactly where she's got that from because I've also seen the video online. I'm pretty sure it was Mount View where somebody did that, but love her for putting that choice in. I loved Liam McAvoy as the dog, as Bruiser, just so much attitude, hilarious throughout, makes some great moments, but there are also some missed opportunities from a directing perspective. Like, Bruiser has so many great asides, and when Bruiser is also reading the law books that Elle is studying, that's just hilarious to me. But you have this brilliant moment where she says Bruiser loves It Used to Be Days of Our Lives, but now it's The Bachelor, and he just doesn't react to that. I'm like, why is that not more of a moment? We also have to talk about Lauren Drew, because Lauren Drew, when she does Whipped Into Shape, is superhuman. Like, she's training for the Olympics in this show. Like, it's always on jump ropes, but the things that she does when she whips it over and over and round and does, it's insane. It is completely ridiculous, the things she does on that stage, and only superhuman Duracell Bunny Lauren Drew could pull all that off and then belt as high as she does at the end and sound fantastic. I also have to shout out Vanessa Fisher. She was great as Vivian throughout the show, but when she comes back in that Whitney Houston I Want to Dance with Somebody wig at the end and does Legally Blonde reprise, I love everything about that. Ensemble standouts, Billy Luke Nevers and Ali Daniel. Every single part that they had some lovely little juicy ensemble tracks. Billy got to play Paulette's ex Dewey. Billy and Ali also got to be the pair of shop workers at the beginning with the whole Courtney take your break moment that is iconic. Ali Daniel's face selling that was a picture. Just generally, anytime either of those two were on stage, they drew your eye completely with the dancing, with the vocals, with the commitment, with the full outness. Brilliant, brilliant performers. Absolute star of this show, however, Nadine Higgin as Paulette. Now, fun fact, Nadine actually was in the original West End production of Legally Blonde in the ensemble and understudied various roles, including Jill Halfpenny as Paulette. So she's now returning to the role over a decade later, and she's so good. It's such a brilliantly realized comedy performance. She's hilarious. The vocals are fantastic. She's probably got the strongest consistent vocals in this show. She's just embracing everything about the ridiculousness that's happening around her, and I completely love the performance she's giving. She's so endearing, she's so charming, she's such a lovable presence on stage. She really makes the scenes that she's in so much stronger for being there. So there's a few ways that I would like for this show to have been a little bit different. The set, I can get past it, and I understand that this is not like a full budget Regent's Park summer musical. I would still have preferred something more in a Barbie dream house. You know, the big step away from tradition here is with casting in this production. And so I think if you made everything else as traditional as possible to really showcase and highlight the casting and how brilliant these performers are, it would have made a more effective statement. And I think the show would have been better for it. Had you had just like this white Barbie dream house, I think the pink on pink on pink is too much just for the eye. It gets hard to look at. The costumes themselves, they're very Little Mix's most recent tour. They're making it modern and up to date with having a TikTok thing and just little references throughout the show. I don't know what it adds. I don't know that it makes it any more relatable. There's a few of the cuts that I struggled with. Like I said, I'm going to talk about that more in a future video where I discuss all of the changes made for this production. But generally, they seemed to be any kind of reference to race or culture, regardless of it, whether it was in an offensive light or not. And Legally Blonde is not a show I think of as portraying race in a particularly offensive way, so it was interesting to see such bold measures taken to remove all references to it. They also removed a lot of the references to Enid Hoops being a lesbian, but kept one in conspicuously, and then the entirety of Gay or European remains untouched, which is just filled with heavy-handed gay stereotypes. So it's a confusing double standard. One piece of staging that really bothered me is in the song Legally Blonde. Now, they do some interesting things here. Now, I'm going to give you a few spoilers for the show. If you don't want to hear it, skip ahead to the next section. So what happens is Callahan kisses Elle. Warner sees the kiss through the window, but usually is pushed away by Vivian before he can see Elle rebuking Callahan and slapping him, so Warner gains a false perception of the situation, but Vivian knows what's really happened. In this one, Warner sees the whole thing, including the slap, still slut shames Elle afterwards, which I think sends a more powerful and more accurate up-to-date message about the fact that guys are the worst. But what I don't like is then when Emmett comes in for the second half of Legally Blonde, the sad song that Elle sings afterwards that's all about her bearing her soul and reevaluating this entire experience and who she is and coming to terms with her identity and her sorrows. He then gets to stand downstage in a spotlight and she walks around the back, and her doing it from the top of the stage I think is meant to come across in a very big Evita Don't Cry For Me Argentina but pink way, but instead it gives the subconscious suggestion to the audience that she is less important because he is in the foreground and she is in the background. It tells us as audience members that his is the principal narrative, his is the principal emotional journey at this moment, and she is a feature of his story, of his emotional response, which is not what we want at that moment. He should be in the background behind her as she sings forwards, unaware of him declaring his love for her. I had a great time seeing this show. I would thoroughly recommend to all young theatregoers to go and see the show. If you don't know Legally Blonde, if you've never had the chance to see it before, but you like other contemporary musicals, go and see this. I promise you will have a great time. There is so much to fall in love with in this show. Anyone in the LGBT community, anyone who has ever been made to feel othered, there is representation for you, there is visibility. This is a show that is speaking to you. This is a show that is desperate for you to come and see it and see yourself reflected on stage. Not in a story about oppression and angst and sadness, but about joy and inclusion and positivity, and in people who are made to feel different, embracing their own power and succeeding. I can also thoroughly recommend the themed cocktails before the show. You know I love a themed cocktail. I had great food at Regent's Park, I had great drinks. It's just a lovely theatre going experience. You rock up, you're in a beautiful park, you're in a stunning theatre, one of my favourite venues. Go, find out for yourself. If you've never been to Regent's Park, this is a great time to start. They are desperately trying to speak to new audiences with this show. Please give them the message by buying a ticket that this is something they should be doing, and they are doing the right thing by trying to look to the next generation of theatregoer. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for plenty more content coming very soon about all your favourite shows. If there is another review you would like to see on my channel or any other Stagey content, let me know in the comments section down below. And let me know in the comments section if you have seen this production of Legally Blonde already. What did you think? Did you like the dogs? Did you get everything about it? What were your thoughts? Let's have a Stagey chat. If you want to support me as a Stagey content creator, head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre, where you can gain access to some exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a Stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a Stagey day. Subscribe!